Welcome to the World History 1 SOL review for Unit 5. So Unit 5 is Rome, which is broken up into two parts. To start, we have the learning targets for Part 1. So starting off, I can identify and describe the geographic influences on Rome's economic, social, and political development. I can describe the important characteristics of Roman mythology and its impact on society. I can identify the significance of the Roman Republic in government, which would be representative democracy. I can describe the social structure and significance of citizenship in the Roman Republic. I can evaluate the causes, effects, and significance of the Punic Wars. And I can classify the causes and effects of the fall of the Roman Republic. So first off, we're going to start with Rome's geography. So Rome is a city-state to start, and it's a republic. It's centered on the Italian peninsula, the peninsula that's shaped like a boot that juts out into the Mediterranean Sea. It's protected by the Alps to the north, and then it has the Mediterranean Sea surrounding the other three sides, as well as other smaller seas. There's a lot of fertile farmland along the Tiber River, which is the main river for Rome. And of course, it has access to the trade routes on the Mediterranean Sea. So as I've mentioned already, Rome itself was a republic. So a republic is a form of government in which power resides with the citizens who have the right to vote and select their leaders. In Rome, they had a few different levels of citizenship. They had the patricians, who were on top. They were the wealthy minority. And they had the plebeians, who were under the patricians. They were the poor people of Rome, however, they were the majority. Then they had selected foreigners, who were people that paid taxes to be a citizen. And then women and slaves were the other people in society, but they were not allowed to be citizens, and they did not have very many rights. So the various parts of the republic. They had consuls, which are their executive branch. The consuls are on top. There was always two of them. They then had a senate, which was one part of their legislative branch. Only patricians could be part of the senate, and they served for life. Their job was to advise the consuls, and they passed laws. Then there were assemblies, which was the other part of the legislative branch that came on a little later. Assemblies included all citizens, especially the plebeians, and their job was to select the two consuls. Then also another part of their republic would be their system of law. The Roman system of law was called the 12 Tables. The 12 Tables ensured that all citizens were given rights, whether they were plebeians or patricians. So the first conflict when it comes to Rome is the Punic Wars. So the Punic Wars were a series of wars fought between Rome and Carthage. Okay, Carthage is a city-state in North Africa. So why did they fight? Roman legions had united along the Italian peninsula, and they felt threatened by Carthage and their control of the Mediterranean Sea. So the two sides go to war to fight for control of trade on the Mediterranean Sea. So in terms of events of the war, Rome wins the First Punic War. Then, a couple of years later, Hannibal comes to power in Carthage, and he has sworn an allegiance to seek revenge against Rome. So what he does is he builds a big army, and he travels from Carthage through Spain, through Gaul, and down and through the Alps into the Italian peninsula. He then marched up and down the Italian peninsula, winning a few battles. However, he eventually loses the Second Punic War. Rome then wins the third war in the series and becomes the ultimate victor of the Punic Wars. So the outcomes of the wars would be Rome, after their victory in the Third Punic War, destroys Carthage. They burn down the city, and they sell all of their remaining survivors into slavery. Rome itself then continues to expand now that they are the dominant power in the Mediterranean, and they start their building blocks of becoming an empire. Okay, so then Rome's republic begins to fall shortly after victories in the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars actually set off a chain reaction that led to the fall of the republic. So as I've mentioned, Romans sold all of the remaining people from Carthage into slavery. This brings a huge number of people into Rome that are working for free. So people that are actually wanting to work for money are no longer needed. So therefore, the unemployment rate skyrockets. The currency then devalues and becomes worth less. And then civil war after civil war begins to break out. So then comes about this thing called the Triumvirate after the Republic falls. A triumvirate is a ruling by a group of three people. However, proves to be an issue because three people have trouble sharing power. So Julius Caesar is the first major figure that emerges out of the first triumvirate. As he takes power, he assists the poor people, but he takes even more power from the Senate, which angers a lot of people. He then becomes dictator for life, which makes even more people upset, and he's later assassinated. Then, after his death, a second triumvirate comes to power. Augustus Caesar is Julius Caesar's grandnephew and adoptive son. He wins power in the second triumvirate, and then he restores the Senate and begins a Roman Empire. He becomes the first Roman emperor. So here are the learning targets for part 2. I can explain the economic, social, and political impacts of the Pax Romana. I can describe the origins, beliefs, traditions, and customs of Christianity. I can identify the patterns of the spread of Christianity and the development and significance of the Church on the Roman Empire. I can identify the contributions of ancient Rome and its impact on Western Europe. And I can classify the reasons for the decline and fall of the Western Roman Empire. So starting off here is the Pax Romana. It's the first 200 years of the Roman Empire. It's Rome's golden age. So during their golden age, they had a lot of political improvements, power is given back to the Senate, a civil service system emerges, and their empire is enlarged. They also had a number of economic improvements. Their trade increased, they had a unified currency, and they made roads safer throughout the empire. And also, during the Pax Romana, the emphasis was on the family, and social classes began to be stabilized. So during the Pax Romana, there was a number of contributors, much like there was during Greece's Golden Age. In terms of architecture, they built on the idea of Greek columns and added an arch and a dome. So an example of an arch and a dome would be the dome is on top of the Pantheon, which you see over here, and then the Colosseum shows the arches. A famous writer from Rome was Virgil. He wrote the Aeneid. He's sometimes classified as the Roman Homer. Latin was the common language for all people in Europe at this time, thanks to the Roman Empire expanding. Latin is also important because it gives birth to the 5 Romance languages. Also, Rome helped to contribute and improve public health by building public baths. Okay, so next up in Rome is the rise of Christianity. In Rome, they were tolerant of other religions as long as you practiced certain religious rituals that they asked you to. This upset numerous amounts of Jews that wanted to practice their own religion. Then comes Jesus, who's believed to be the Messiah or the Son of God. A couple things he did and he's known for. He preached to the public, and he had a special appeal to the poor people. Then he's later crucified because people are afraid he's gaining too much power, and he's resurrected. So Christianity begins to spread after that. It spreads very rapidly. The reason for that, it spreads while people are trading, they're communicating with each other. Also, as I've mentioned already, it has a very appealing message. At first, it's met with a lot of resistance. Romans feared the rising power in Christianity, and they began killing a lot of Christians. People that are killed in terms of their faith are called martyrs. And 2 emperors are important in Christianity's movement. Constantine, the guy that saw the cross in the sky before he beat an invading army, is famous for legalizing Christianity. This is a massive expansion of the religion. Next is Theodosius. He's important because he made Christianity the official religion of Rome. So the impacts of Christianity becomes a source of moral authority for people in the empire. People then start to care more about Christianity than they do about the actual empire or the emperor. It also begins to act as a unifying force in Western Europe. People are coming together because they have a common belief system now. So, much like other religions, there are 4 basic things you need to know about Christianity. The founder is Jesus. He's believed to be the Son of God. The holy text for Christianity is the Bible. The Bible is a combination of the Old Testament, coming from the Torah, and the New Testament, which are the life and teachings of Jesus. Its location, it began in Jerusalem and then later spread throughout the entire Roman Empire. Much of the spread is thanks to Peter and Paul, who wrote numerous letters to their followers. And then in terms of beliefs, it's a monotheistic religion, meaning they had one God. They believe that Jesus is the Son of God. They preach love for God, love for thy neighbor. They preach forgiveness of sins to earn a place in heaven. And just like Judaism, they follow the Ten Commandments as their moral code of conduct. Okay, and the last thing would be the fall of the Roman Empire. The fall of the Roman Empire can be seen as somewhat of a perfect storm. The reason is a bunch of things came together. You have a disloyal military, the empire becomes too big to control, moral decay is running throughout the empire. People stop caring about the empire. They care more about Christianity than they do about their own empire or emperor. The empire starts to face economic issues in terms of gold and silver drain. They have bad leadership because emperors are constantly being assassinated. And then a major thing was Constantine moved the capital to Constantinople, which was in the east. The seat of power is now in the east rather than the west where it originally was. This splits the empire in half. So then finally in 476, Western Rome falls to invaders. Invaders that were Germanic coming from the west, or an example from the east would be the Huns, who were led by the famous chieftain Attila the Hun.